Hello everyone. So on day 3 of my journey on learning to become a better StarCraft player, my overall goal on this learning process is to break down each of the individual factors that make a good StarCraft player good. My approach is to drill each of the factor and try to measure my progress. My old method of playing games were just playing the game in hope that I get better as the time progresses. I want to take a different approach and becoming more deliberate on my practice. Just a side note, I'm a beginner in StarCraft. So today I decided to get an immediate feedback whether the drill that I've been doing is working and whether it really helps me in the actual game. I started playing with a few individuals to test whether the build orders that I've been practicing actually helps or not. I played a total of 3 games, and luckily I get to play with all 3 races. When I played against Protoss, the build order that I've been practicing on day 2 works, and I get to overwhelm my enemy fairly quickly, especially with somewhat massive army of Stalker, Immortal, and Colossus. However, I was demolished right away by Terran and Zerg. The Terran and Zerg didn't even play a rush game in the beginning. And one of the new term that I learned today is cheese. I might be wrong on this, but cheese means when a player are trying to play some kind of a rush game or trying to do something that is not conventional, something that is not normal from the standard opening. This concept of opening kind of remind me of the chess game that I played a lot. In chess game, there is an opening, mid game, and also ending game. In the opening of the chess game, you try to control the center and develop your pieces. It seems that the similar concept can be applied in StarCraft, although I'm still figuring out what is the objective of the opening. It seems that the opening of StarCraft is more on scouting the enemy and building an army composition that counter your enemy's army. In summary though, I realized that even though the build order might work against Protoss, I'm not really well versed in playing against Terran and Zerg. During the games with Terran and Zerg, I wasn't really trying to scout them and really just focus on my build order. And I just following my build order blindly. And I know this is probably wrong, but I really wanted to see from this mistake what are some of the lessons that can be learned. So for sure the build order won't work against all the races and against all strategies. That's pretty obvious. So at some point I will really have to learn more about the types of opening and the types of scouting and also the strength and the weaknesses of each unit from each of the different races. The Terran and Zerg players will often send in units to check and see if their army composition can beat mine. I was demolished by Banshee, Marine, and Marauder on my Terran game. Even though I have Colossus, I lost most of my units right away. And this is probably because I didn't really try to micro. I think I needed more Zealot or Adept since my Stalker were not really that strong against Marine. When I played against Zerg, I lost against Roaches. All of my unit got demolished right away. I didn't even realize or know what Roach were weak against. So I kept building Zealots, which apparently were weak against Roaches. So on my next drill, I would like to learn a little bit more on building against Terran and Zerg. What is the standard opening against these two races, and really try to understand the weaknesses and the strength of the units for those two races. In the long run, I might create a decision tree of each strategies and maybe come up with some kind of a counter for each of that strategy. I probably will also need to learn more on being able to micro my units, and this is quite a bit of things to do, so I will try to focus on one thing at a time. I'm probably going to focus more on the standard build order against Terran. Also, from the 3 games that I played, here are the key summary that I learned from all of these games. When I played against Protoss and actually won, one thing that I learned is that I actually got dropped, but I didn't even realize that. So I probably need to utilize the minimaps a little bit more often. In addition to that, my Stalker are actually weak against Zealot, so I have to be careful on my army composition. The Immortals were also weak against Zealot, so I have to be careful with that. On the second game that I played against the Terran, I learned that I need to create a little bit more units. I need to create more Zealot, more Adept, and don't just keep building Stalker. Stalker is weak against Marauder. Marauder is weak against Zealot. Hence, more Zealot. I also need to preserve my unit during the battle and back up to a more favorable position. Even with Colossus, I still lost. I need to micro a little bit more and buy a little bit more time to build more favorable units. I also need to learn a little bit more about scouting. On my game against Zerg, Stalker is weak against Roach and Circling. I also needed more Sealot. Roach were weak against Immortal. I also need to learn how to buy a little bit more time and backup so I can actually build a more favorable unit. Also, I need to learn a little bit more on scouting against Zerg. So that's it for today. Hope this helps. As always, let me know your thoughts and let me know what works for you in the past so I can incorporate that into my practice routine.